A lot to unpack in the roundtable this morning, and joining us at this hour, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rod Gray. We haven't seen you for a while, Rob. How's your summer been so far, huh?
Very good, Eddie.
So far, so good?
Yeah.
Very good. So now we're going to put you back to work. We're hitting Labor Day. We're going to put you right back to work. Let's start with Mayor Wu's Mass and Cass plan. What's your take first? Let's start there.
Well, I think first we have to give her credit for taking it on. This has been a failure of government at all levels that goes back long before her watch, really a decade. So this is, I guess, her first crack at taking it on. I just wonder, though, let's face it, a lot of these people should be in jail or they should be in a psychiatric setting. So is this approach going to be enough, or is it just going to pop up again, or is it just going to get moved down the street to another area? We'll see. I think we need the police to be tougher there, but let's give her a chance to make it work.
Marianne, I almost asked Rob, is it a solvable problem? I mean, is it a solvable problem?
Human problems are created by humans, so of course they can be solved. You know, again, I agree with Rob. To Michelle Wu's credit, she's the first person in 10 years to put a plan together to actually address this. And it focuses on public health and public safety. On the public health front, she's been doing it all along, you heard her numbers today, trying to get people into rehab, getting them into housing and all of that. It's the public safety part that I think is going to be the biggest challenge. If she can tackle that, the long-term plans here are terrific. Going back to Long Island, the facilities there, the wraparound services they're going to bring in, not just for recovery and addiction, but job services, getting people back to work, training people, housing, all of those things. I'm very confident about that. The tough part is the front part, trying to get people off Mass and Cass, Atkinson's and Southampton. But that's where she has empowered the Boston police to do just that.
Yeah, but how far is that going to go?
Let's just see.
How far is that going to go?
We're going to get rid of the tents. Okay, great.
Well, they'll come back again.
Exactly. So when the tent comes back and it's the same guy putting up the tent again, are they going to finally arrest that guy and put him in prison? That's my question.
But it's not just putting the tents up and down, it's what's going on in the tents.
That's right.
And that's where she's empowered the Boston police to arrest and arraign and all of those things, detain people, everything you have to do to stop that kind of illicit activity. That's the point.
We'll see. Hopefully it's not enforcement light. I hope it is enforcement just like that.
Item 2 is this. For the first time in American history, we have a mugshot of a former president, Donald Trump, booked on racketeering charges connected to attempts to overturn election results in the state of Georgia. He chose to pose that way. You can judge whether it's a good look or not, but it's not hurting him in the polls. Marianne, is that going to change?
No. And not only is it not hurting him, it's helping him. Yeah. We saw that in the great Iowa poll. Last week was a split sample. He went up almost double digits before he was arraigned, the fourth indictment to the last indictment. So here's the thing. Donald Trump, if he wins Iowa, he runs the table. The primary is over. That will be that. And right now, with a 23-point lead in Iowa, he'll do just that.
Rob?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, he's got a 23-point to 30-point lead in Iowa. The same in New Hampshire. Yeah. He's got a very solid at least 30% of the vote, maybe 40% of the vote. That being said, can the death of 1,000 cuts finally happen here? I mean, and do Republicans finally come to their senses and say, this guy said, find me 11,780 votes in Georgia. Yeah. He was trying to change the outcome of the presidential election. We don't do dictatorships here in the United States. Maybe some light will dawn here, but we need a consolidation of Republican candidates for that to happen, because somebody's got to be able to get to 35-40% to be above Trump.
So to that very point, the Trump-less Republican presidential debate is still being hashed over days later. The newcomer Vivek Ramaswamy was getting most of the buzz after it, positive or negative, was getting the buzz, aggressively mixing it up with Christie, Pence, Nikki Haley. Ron DeSantis maybe didn't make much of an impact, slow start, then held his ground. So where do we go from here, Rob?
Well, my quick take on the debate is Haley won, DeSantis lost, Christie was good, Trump was missing. The rest don't matter, okay? I know they got a little bit of TV time. We'll see how long they're around. But, you really got to get some people facing off directly with Trump. I think he actually hurt himself by not showing up.
Trump.
Yeah, I mean, this Tucker Carlson interview, I think it got 1/10 of the viewership of the debate. So, Haley was good. Can she consolidate kind of the Republican establishment to actually make a run at Trump? We'll see. People are thinking twice about DeSantis now.
It's an August 2023 conversation for an election, essentially, well, next year, but in a general election in November of 2024, Marianne.
But Iowa's right around the corner.
But Iowa's
And then
right
New
around the
Hampshire,
corner.
It's South
Yeah.
Carolina and all that. I mean, the winner of the debate was Donald Trump by not showing up and getting arraigned the next day. And the poll numbers we both just cited. For anyone who got any benefit, Haley, Ramaswamy, whatever, it's like a dead cat bounce. They'll get a little bit and it will fade away. The one who is dead is DeSantis. He is done. He has proven to everybody, wholesale, retail, debate or not, field of dreams, I don't care. The guy does not have it. He doesn't have any political skills. He doesn't have the political charisma. In fact, he has the opposite, and he could not perform the other night. He's done.
I agree. He was given the lane to come up on
Yep.
the outside, open lane, and he hasn't been able to pull it off over many months. I think a lot of Republicans are hoping that come November, Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, will get in. Maybe he'll do some kind of asymmetrical warfare, like teaming up with Nikki Haley against Trump. It may be wishful thinking, but, you know, of these guys on stage, who's going to beat Trump? I'm not sure.
Rupert Murdoch's trying to get Youngkin in, but guess what? Youngkin's no better than DeSantis.